we have our 2022 Lewis County Tree Farmer of the Year presentation to the Hemphill O'Neill Company. First of all, it's good to see the intergenerational aspect of the company. Especially, I don't know if Bob Sr. was the founder, but he's pretty close probably. He's 93 years young. He's here today with us. If you want to come up, say a couple words. They're celebrating 75 years being in business this year.
Okay, you can account 75 if you account for the fact that the first 3 years I came and worked during the summer, I was in college. My dad, of course, came from Bucota, where they had the big sawmill that finally ran out of timber. Went in with Alan Hemphill, that formed Hemphill O'Neill Company, and was actually the first few years we were lumber wholesalers. We handled the production from the Millman Lumber Company, some others, Holman, wood products, and our specialty was in railroad and car material. And we inherited all these sawmills, portable sawmills, that you probably noticed there were piles of slabs and sawdust all over Lewis County. There were over 100 and some portable sawmills that we managed, financed them, found orders for them, and put it all through Wood Products, which we were only a partial owner at the time, finally getting the full ownership at Wood Products at a later date. So that's a brief history. I had a comment about the fact that they turned into a tree farm. Bill Blum was the vice president of raw material and forestry for the company for a long, long time. And a good share of the timber that these gentlemen over here are now managing were acquired during Bill Blum's tenure at the business.
So we have Bob Jr., who's president of Hemphill O'Neill Company, and Brendan Vandervelde, who's the operations manager, and they have a presentation of their tree farm.
So my dad pretty well covered what's on this first slide. Yeah, basically started out as brokers for the portable sawmills, then grew into a large manufacturing.
Lift it up so you don't have to bend it.
Okay, large manufacturing facility, and then when the mills closed, we were tree farmers. We have approximately 6,300 acres of timberland. It's mostly in Lewis County, but there are a few parcels in Grace Harbor and Pacific. And the majority of our land is a Site Class 2 on the 50-year index, and Douglas fir is the primary species, alder after that, western red cedar, and a few other minor ones. Here's kind of the spread of the ownership. Lewis County is the big box in the middle there, and you can see that's where most of our ground is, from Vader over to PL. This is just a brief recap of the history, which I think we've already covered. My dad joined the company in 1950. During the 60s, we acquired 2 manufacturing facilities and merged them into Hemphill O'Neill Lumber Company. And at that time, we became a major lumber manufacturer. We added Henry Date Properties and Mill in 1975 as well. My dad became president in 1972. So the 60s and 70s were boom years for us. The 80s, not so. The lumber markets plunged. Log exports cut the supply of raw material for us. We were in fierce competition with Weyerhaeuser Company, and we ended up closing the mills to avoid losing everything. So at that point, we became a tree farmer, and we held on to the timberlands that had been acquired to provide raw material for the mills. The Hemphill family decided that they would like to be out of the business after those tumultuous early 80s, and so we bought them out in 1985. My dad retired in 1994, and I stepped forward to be president. In 1996, the company split between O'Neill Pine and Hemphill O'Neill. There was a division of timberland and assets. And since that time, there have been several fourth-generation family members that have worked in the company. Currently, our operations manager is Brendan Vandervelde. We're happy to announce we just got recertified last year with the American Tree Farm System. Just a few historical pictures to recap. We began purchasing timberland in the 1960s. Some logs delivered to the Holman Division. A Plant Improvement Award being received there, article from the Chronicle. That's an aerial view of the main plant, wood products, and then the main employees of the company. Got Harold O'Neill, and then John Hemphill and Bob O'Neill. Here's Bill Blum, Rod Ashby, and Doug Cohn. Some lumber being loaded by rail, ship across the U.S. That's my dad when he became president, and his family shareholders. At one time, there were more than 50 shareholders in the company. That's Erin. She's here tonight. My dad's first grandchild. And a picture of 4 generations. We have a family history book that tells the story. Legacy of 2 Lumbermen, done by Julie McDonald Zander, and it was published in 2006. And now I'm going to turn it over to our Vice President of Operations to tell you what we do today.
Thank you. So here's a new seedling that we planted recently by PL, and we wanted to make sure it was still alive after the really warm spring last year. It was. And then here's a plantation along King Road where it's got the gravel, and about 7 years old, and we had done some slashing through there to get rid of a bunch of alder and such. This is so lots of different pictures. You saw all the different parcels we have. They're spread out all over. So this one's near Jones Road in Winlock. You can see there's some dead Scotch broom in the picture as well. This is from like the bottom of a hill, and there's a bit of an opening. The trees didn't grow as well off to the left of the road. So we did some late interplanting, and then the trees up higher were doing really well. Here's a parcel that we commercially thinned in 2019. Tried to take a good representative picture, at least where it looked really good. And then here's a older stand just off of Highway 6. And then something that we've since logged, but at the time was over 70 years old, just near Galvin. Beautiful trees. Where'd the mouse go? And near the bottom, there's a stream at the bottom, and near there were some, I guess, residual trees that we couldn't cut anyway, but they're well over 100 years old. And that one's still there because it's down by the stream. And then I'll go through, we have a couple sections. This is the kind of maintenance section, shows you a little bit of what we've been busy with recently and in the past on maintenance. Often get trees falling into the road. We also had Jesse O'Neill, while he worked with us, he designed these signs, and there is hanging one for us, just to let folks know who owns it and that we're actively managing. Here's a parcel. It's over by Johnson Road, and we're just clearing the road. It's one of our bigger parcels, and we wanted to make sure it had good access, especially during the dry months in the summer, clearing the brush and the grass. One of the neat things we did recently, we bought a different kind of trimmer, a little heavier duty with the handlebars, but more of a forestry lineup one, and it can run different heads, and it's been really helpful. We've done some Scotch broom cutting with it too. It almost goes as fast as a person with a chainsaw, but your back doesn't hurt as much because it's got the harness. And we had donut delivery with my kids. And that's David in the picture. And then we also we tried our hand at setting some forestry gates We had to dig the holes and set the posts, and these are heavier duty, so we had to make a bigger hole. And then got the cement poured with a little portable, well, a fairly big truck that mixes it on the spot as much as you need. Then we hung the gates. Thought it went pretty well. Everything almost lined up. It's a little longer ago, but off on a parcel we have by Galvin where it really drops off, it keeps dropping after this. We're trying to grass seed the hillside so it didn't erode. And that's Bob Jr. and his son Michael. And then this is more recent, there with my daughter, and actually the same hillsides basically. So this is what it looks like now. Got some alder popping up and then the grass is there. That culvert there is important because at one point at this spot or another just down the road from it, the whole road washed away. Well, we cleaned both culverts because the whole road washed away in one spot when the culvert got plugged. That's my daughter helping me with cleaning that out, make sure that culvert's clear. And Enan was there too, so he knows a little bit about it too. And here's a culvert we put in recently when we were doing some thinning, fixed up the road. And here's another, well, this is the other road in the same parcel that we put in there. Nice and small though, not too much rock, so we could get in there and do the thinning. That was Tree Management Plus. And this is a road we put in. We wanted to get ahead of our, get ready for when we would log and get the road in early. So we got it in about, not quite a year, early, before the winter, but not, I think 2 years is best to really let a road set. But this was done the year before we started to log. And this was, looked really good. It's looking a little more beat up now because they've started logging. As we've managed our tree farm, we have about 5,000 acres that we basically can actively manage and log on. And we've tried to do different things to help make sure the trees are growing well and also to get some cedar growing, which on one particular parcel we interplanted cedar through the whole thing. And that took a lot of nets too. This is another one by PL that we recently logged. We did a timber sale in that case. And we've been trying I just call them the white nets and the yellow nets, I guess tiller or the mesh ones. And we've started to prefer these white ones because the tiller nets start to decay after about a year or two. And we like to hike the nets up rather than redo them. And then I can't hike the yellow nets. The trees are all tangled and it just rips. So we started putting in taller white nets. And here's some work we did to, we had sprayed this parcel a couple times when we had some Scotch broom pop up here or there, but it still got out of hand. And so we ended up and the Scotch broom was big. So we got a slash crew in there and we slashed through. And after they'd finished, and these trees are about, let's say, 7. This time around, I think by the time the Scotch broom and anything else gets going, these trees will be above them and will be good to go, I guess free to grow. So that was an interesting picture. We also, near Hope Creek, we did some, well, it's basically pre-commercial thinning. We hadn't done that for a very long time. We were taking care of spacing and the alder in spots was starting to get up above good fir, so we didn't want to lose the fir. And that's the results, the dead or alder laying down. We did a couple thinning projects, so we're going to talk about a bunch of different things we've been doing. This was a cut to length thinning on a stand that's about 25 years old off Roebuck Road. And you can't maybe see it super well, but you can see the pattern of what was thin and here's before. You can also see areas where it's basically hardwoods or kind of brushy, where we didn't, and there's a stream in here, I think, where we didn't do the thinning. So we only thinned where there's good overstock fir, basically. And here's a picture similar to the other one we saw earlier of the results, and we're about 180 to 200, probably closer to 200 trees per acre, and Tree Management Plus did that with their cut to length side. Then nearby, kind of a good comparison, we did a tree length thinning, an older stand about 35 years old, and this is what it looks like after. We didn't thin over here or over here, couldn't. There's a stream down there too. And you can see that the corridors are a little wider, or there's kind of more corridors closer together and there's more openings. And then a couple bigger landings in that one. That's basically the difference between, in some ways, the tree length versus the cut to length. And I like the results better of the cut to length, way the stand looks, but we made more money on the tree length thinning. And this is after thinning in a spot in that tree length thinning project and what it looks like. There's a bunch of these corridors through it. And then we've been doing a bunch of work with GIS to basically put to paper, not paper necessarily, but put to the computer, I guess, to the cloud, the information about our parcels, and then have a good place to look it back up. David's been doing a lot of that work to gather things like this, the stream measurements and pips and all that kind of thing, and where the corners are. And the cool thing is that in there, if you maybe put a maintenance point or whatnot, you can click on it on the computer and take a look at the picture. And in this case, just off of King Road again, there's a bunch of scotch broom starting and some alder, I think, through here. And so we'll probably want to take care of that. Then on to harvesting. So this was a pretty cool picture. Some really nice quality logs that we recently were logging. And you can see the pile and you can kind of see the size. These ones, I don't think, some of these might be oversized, so we're sending them to Zippo at the time, but nice quality oversize. And here's a cool picture, very valuable log, figured maple. I think that was, I've never gone and delivered to them, but DVO Specialties in Elma. And then some timber harvesting that we did off King Road. This might be Skip Boatberg doing it. And then this is the parcel where we did that interplanting with cedar and Douglas fir. It had a lot of cedar in this parcel in the first place. It's down lower, and you can see the neighbors trying to compete with us on alder, so we have to watch that it doesn't start with all alder. This is a timber sale just outside a PL where I showed the picture with the white nets and the yellow nets where after we planted. And it had also older, or probably around 75, 80-year-old, I believe it was, timber on there. So we've been logging through some of the older inventory. And this is we did a pay-as-cut timber sale just off Peel McDonald Road. That's Croom Logging in this case. They had some, their equipment operators were really good. Like this was, I believe this was George, and then Butch was out in the field, and Mitch was running the loading, and they did a good job. And we got some pulls out of that same parcel. So we're just checking for the road and drainage and everything as they're wrapping up, and along came a big load of pulls, so we got out of the way. And this is, earlier on we showed a new road and talked about the infrastructure, putting roads in ahead of time. This is that same spot, but this year, recently, and they've started to log, and this is Croom Logging again. And they just started cutting back here. This is about burning and reforestation. We don't, of course, do any kind of, I guess what do you call it, prescribed burning or anything, but we do burn our slash piles when they're too big, basically over 10 by 10. Here's a couple pictures. This is Aaron. Now you can't see who that is right now. Maybe it's David. Out on a parcel off of P.L. McDonald Road up on a hillside with really sticky clay. And then this is just off of Galvin. It's the parcel where you saw me with the really big trees. And this is, the really big trees are still down there, but we logged the top off. And that was Bucks Logging that did that for us. And that's Enan there, helping carry the burning supplies. He's a big helper. And then on the one with the sticky clay, we went to plant plugs, and lo and behold, it took a lot longer than I expected to thaw them. So I was starting to get worried about the trees dying. It was a colder day, but sunny. So we took the plugs out of the box and had them in the bags to keep them from drying the roots out and trying to thaw them faster. So that was a total pain. The crew, they had probably about 15 people planting, and we were going as fast as we could to get thawed plugs ready for them. And my kids here helping, I think this is the same parcel. We did, these look like bare roots. And then Alea and Kellen, who are now 6 and 8. He's quite tall. carrying a bag together, and then we're taking a ride there to move trees around. I believe we were planting, kind of doing some interplanting or planting where the piles were, because we typically have burned the next year. If we plant right away after the logging, then we'll plant around the piles and leave some room around them, and then go back a year later after we burn them and plant the piles. Here's another parcel. So we noticed we've been measuring our new plantations to see what the tree counts are and whatnot, and see how well the trees, like the vigor and everything in the new trees. We noticed some spots where there were low stocking, so there's a lot of grass in this one. We're interplanting, and then we tested some vegetation mats, which we're worried about rodents and whatnot girdling the trees, but so far they seem okay. Maybe the rodents aren't there yet. But that's Enon in the picture, kind of putting stakes into those mats. We probably tried 100 of them. It was pretty tiring, because you have to clear the ground first. And this is my crew. I got the tree bags, and then they're helping me. I had Kellen holding trees, and I forget who was doing what, but they're all helping. This is Aaron. This is that parcel where we had a picture with the GIS and then the Scotch broom issue. We put some cedar into this one too, and we spent a bunch of times. We spent time pre-cutting these nets and having them all ready to go. I think we used the white nets. Then this is, I believe, yeah, this is while we were burning, but this is the parcel again where we put the we did cedar interplanting with fir. I forget how many thousands of cedar we put into there, but we put it through the whole, Bob, is it 80 acres in the bottom? Or a little less? Something like that. Yeah. But we put the whole bottom stretch of the parcel, we put cedar through it. Typically now, in the last, say, 3 years, we've been planting about 5,000 cedar along with the fir that we've been doing, and there's more fir than cedar. And then this tree planting crew, I think they had cedar in one pouch and fir in the other, and they were able to do that. The next time, up in PL, when I asked about them doing that, I think it might have been a language issue, or they just weren't sure what I meant. And so they did one or the other. And what I should have had them do is have them walk side by side, because I did want to mix it, but we ended up with pockets of cedar and then fir. So I like that. We like that this is mixed because it seems to be better for browse, because there's also fir through it, and it's not just all cedar. I think the elk learn where the cedar is and come back to it, or smell it or something. We took some cool ecologic pictures too, especially a few of them we took while we were getting all our tree farms inspected. Since we have so many different parcels, I think we had to visit, is it 60 different separate tree farms? Joanna probably knows the count, but 48. It felt like more. But yeah, so we took some pictures while we're out looking at different ecologic sites. Like for example, this waterfalls up by PL, and it's just before the Chehalis, and it's a beautiful spot. Probably our favorite spot in the whole tree farm. And a spotted owl, I think. Did we take the? Whoa! Yeah. Pygmy owl. Yeah, right. I was like, why do we? But is that on one of our parcels too?
Yes.
Okay. And then this is one off of Johnson Road. We have a bunch of wet areas there. They make good habitat though, and these do not grow trees. And just off Jones Road, on another parcel off of Jones Road, there was I don't know if it's still there, but there was a huge beaver dam. That's Michael walking on top of it. Some other cool pictures of the beavers at work too there. And some cork fungus and hair ice. Pretty cool stuff. I don't see that very often. And then family pictures. There's a few through there, but this is just family. And if this would be Enon, right, Aaron? So Jesse, Bob Jr., Michael, and Enon watching the foresters at work, or loggers at work. This is quite a while back. Michael and Bob Jr. Out cruising, and them again taking a look at a recent logging job. This is Jeremy and Michael in the office. Yeah, quite a few years ago. About my daughter Alea with Bob Jr. and we were doing a tree planting day. It's a little late in the season, so I think we had to help water it later. But the kids really enjoy, especially Leah, she really enjoys nurturing the seedlings, thinks of them as little babies. And then we did it again in a similar spot, and I think in the same parcel. And then that was Enon, which is there now. And then that's actually my mom when they're visiting from Canada. Then Bob and Eden and Leah. We really enjoyed involving our kids with the work where we can. That's a Leah again, pretty cute, having fun planting trees. That's Aaron and who would that be? Kellen, maybe? Pregnant with Kellen? Growing new tree farmers. And then we did had the whole family out one day off of, this would be off Boisfort Valley Road, where we had that slashing crew later cutting Scotch broom. This is before it was planted. And I think that was, Skip had a cutter in there that we visited with that day. And the whole family, and even though I was working in an office at the time, I made sure I wore my Carhartt jacket. And then more recently, on that the job off P.L. McDonald Road where we had croom logging, we had some really big trees too, over 100. Got my crew with me on the job, and Aaron with Leah, Kellen, and Martin. He's 4 now. With their hard hats on, safety first, and then this is Martin. He's hugging a little baby seedling. They really like nurturing those trees. So that's it.